her taking credit for other people's work.
She plagiarized that speech.
She wasn't actually invited by anyone.
This was the moment, the major defeat on her face when she realized that no one had bothered to show up for what was a catastrophic speech.
For years, Meghan Markle has positioned herself as a voice on everything from mental health to online safety. But her latest appearance in Geneva may have created a problem she never expected. Instead of headlines celebrating her speech about artificial intelligence and child protection, critics were asking a very different question. Was the speech itself original?
Another day, another Meghan Markle PR stunt that backfired for using plagiarized speech.
The controversy exploded after Meghan appeared at the Lost Screen Memorial event in Geneva, where she spoke about the dangers facing children online. The message itself was serious. She warned about algorithms, harmful content, and the growing role of artificial intelligence in shaping young lives. But almost immediately, online observers began dissecting her words, comparing them to arguments that had already appeared elsewhere, and questioning whether the Duchess was delivering original ideas or simply repackaging someone else's work. One comparison in particular caught fire.
She plagiarized that speech from Dr. Dana Susskind.
Critics pointed to a recent article by Dr. Dana Susskind, who argued that parents should not be expected to shoulder the entire burden of protecting children from emerging technologies. In that article, Susskind wrote that society does not ask parents to build their own car seats and should not expect them to build their own content filters either. Around the same time, Meghan was telling her Geneva audience that society did not ask parents to build seatbelts, did not ask children to test unsafe medicines, and did not accept poisoned water or defective toys as the price of progress.
Tell parents to create their own seatbelts. We did not ask children to test unsafe medicine. We did not shrug at poisoned water or defective toys and call it the price of progress.
Now, to be clear, those are not identical statements. They are not word-for-word copies. But critics argue that the similarities go beyond coincidence. Both use child safety analogies. Both shift responsibility away from parents and toward institutions. Both frame technology companies as entities that should be held accountable before harm occurs. Whether that amounts to plagiarism is another matter entirely, but the comparison was enough to trigger a fresh wave of scrutiny. And that was only the beginning.
It was pretty messed up. And let me tell you why. Because she wasn't actually invited by anyone. She went to appear with the WHO, World Health Organization, but the event was WHO and Archwell Philanthropies.
Because almost as soon as the plagiarism discussion started, another accusation appeared. This time, it wasn't that Meghan had borrowed ideas from a human author. It was that her speech sounded like it had been written by artificial intelligence. According to reports circulating online, some critics claimed that portions of the speech displayed what they described as the hallmarks of AI-assisted drafting.
Relentless algorithms, exploitative engagement, and endless exposure to harmful content that they are not seeking out.
I guess 4-year-old Lily didn't seek out her starring role in selling Meghan's outfit either, did she?
They pointed to polished language, repetitive structures, and carefully balanced phrases. The speech featured multiple examples of rhetorical symmetry, the kind of language pattern that has become increasingly associated with large language models. Think about some of the phrases that stood out. Children are not products. They are not experiments. They are not expendable. Relentless algorithms, exploitative engagement, endless exposure to harmful content. Critics argued that these phrases felt less like spontaneous human expression and more like the kind of language generated when a machine is instructed to produce an emotionally compelling public speech.
I think that it's time for people to put their foot down because this is just going to continue. This is just going to keep escalating.
The problem for Meghan wasn't simply that people were accusing her of using artificial intelligence. The problem was the timing, because this wasn't a business conference. It wasn't a Silicon Valley product launch. It wasn't even a celebrity interview. This was an event centered around parents who say they lost their children after online harm. And that's exactly why critics reacted so strongly.
Wants to protect children, it is a good cause. But I think it's a little ironic to have Meghan Markle come speak at an event for bullying when she's one of the biggest bullies, in my opinion. It's like having Bernie Madoff go speak at a convention on finance.
According to people who attended the event, Meghan's speech was designed to sound urgent, emotional, personal, She spoke about algorithms. She spoke about dangerous content. She spoke about technology companies profiting from engagement, while families paid the price. But online observers immediately noticed something unusual. The speech sounded almost too polished. Every sentence seemed perfectly constructed. Every emotional beat landed exactly where you would expect it to.
But there's just one moment at the end, and I want you to watch closely here. She's touching her nose, touching her nose. And I don't know what it's about. I've got some idea of what it's about. And I just want you to watch closely. Let's just give her the benefit of the doubt and think she's trying to do the one tear left eye. She's trying to get some emotion.
We want our children to be safe. Let our children look back.
Meghan isn't some random celebrity getting accused of using ChatGPT. She's one of the loudest public voices warning about the dangers of artificial intelligence. She was standing in Geneva arguing that AI is accelerating risks for children. At the exact same time, people online were asking whether AI might have been helping write the speech she was delivering. For critics, the irony was impossible to resist. And once they started looking closer, another detail jumped out.
So she basically created this event just to show up, give a speech at an art installation, BT Dubs, that was already there. She wasn't actually invited by anyone.
Meghan wasn't presenting new research. She wasn't unveiling a new policy proposal. She wasn't announcing a major initiative. Instead, much of the speech relied on familiar themes the public has heard before. Critics argued there was very little that was actually new, which is where the Dana Susskind comparison suddenly became much more interesting. Because if the speech wasn't offering fresh ideas, where exactly were those ideas coming from?
She couldn't stop smirking. She had that creepy smirk the whole time.
That question spread across social media surprisingly fast. Some people accused Meghan of recycling existing arguments. And suddenly the conversation shifted again. It was no longer about whether AI wrote the speech. It was about whether Meghan had become a spokesperson for ideas developed by other people. It's not the first time Meghan has faced accusations like this. Over the years, critics have repeatedly accused her of borrowing concepts, branding strategies, marketing language, and even visual ideas from other public figures.
Speaking at an event for bullying. She's the bully. She's literally the biggest bully. You can even see her face sometimes when she has to interact with someone who's poor. She's like disgusted. She looks disgusted having to hug people who don't live in massive mansions in Montecito like her. She seems absolutely disgusted.
Fairly or unfairly, the pattern has become part of her public image, which meant Geneva wasn't being judged in isolation. People weren't just looking at one speech. They were looking at a history. And for many critics, the AI accusations felt like the latest chapter in a much larger story. A story about authenticity. Because in today's world, authenticity has become Meghan's biggest problem.
And by the way, it's not about you, Meghan, right? But she makes it all about herself. And she also does things that she doesn't understand why people think she's a hypocrite.
What audiences struggle to forgive is the feeling that something isn't genuine. And that's exactly the perception Meghan found herself battling in Geneva. The more she spoke about authenticity online, the more critics questioned her own. The more she warned about artificial intelligence, the more people wondered whether artificial intelligence was helping shape her message. And the more she tried to position herself as a leading voice on the issue, the louder one uncomfortable question became. If these ideas weren't truly hers, then whose were they?
Here's Jacket Lady. Look at her. She looks riveted, doesn't she? She's like, I'm near a princess.
Oh, boy.
No, she couldn't care less. She's not interested. And it's the public's verdict on we don't give a shit about you. Shut up and go live your life and stop bothering us with your fake profundities and fake title.
But if the AI accusations created a headache for Meghan, what happened next may have been even worse. Because the internet wasn't just questioning how the speech was written. People started questioning whether Meghan was the right person to deliver it in the first place. The entire Geneva event was centered around protecting children online, the dangers of social media, the risks of digital exposure, the responsibility adults have when it comes to safeguarding young people, a serious message. Yet within hours, critics were pointing to something Meghan herself had posted.
She traveled to Geneva, Switzerland to give some speech about the dangers of social media. She posted on social media before she went a picture of herself surrounded by designer clothing and Lilibet.
A photograph featuring Princess Lilibet. And suddenly the conversation changed again. Because for years, Harry and Meghan have repeatedly spoken about privacy. They've spoken about media intrusion. They've spoken about protecting children from unwanted attention. They've spoken about the dangers of growing up in the public eye. In fact, protecting children from publicity has become one of the defining themes of their post-royal life.
It's obviously ludicrous. The whole thing is ridiculous. And she's got to start realizing that her own actions are clashing.
So critics couldn't help noticing what they saw as an uncomfortable contradiction. Why speak about protecting children from the online world while simultaneously sharing carefully curated images of your own children with millions of followers?
Posted Mama's Little Helper with the so-called daughter there, maybe shining her shoes, but very much part of the merch sheen operation, because at the front of the shot was the Armani dress and black shoes that Meghan would wear to the event.
And then there was the question that critics kept circling back to. Not just what was said in Geneva, and not just how many people showed up, but who actually stood behind the entire event in the first place. Because while Meghan Markle's appearance was framed as a global humanitarian moment, it didn't happen in a vacuum. It was delivered under the umbrella of an international institution already heavily scrutinized in public debate and led by figures who themselves have long been the subject of political controversy and competing narratives online.
Speech began with Meghan standing in front of that lost screen memorial with virtually no one behind her apart from those few passers-by, and she began by thanking Dr. Tedros.
Thank you for being here this evening. And thank you, Dr. Tedros, not simply for your leadership at the World Health Organization, but for your clarity.
And now Dr. Tedros has posted today that he presented Meghan, the Duchess of Sussex.
At the center of that structure stood Dr. Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus, the Director General of the World Health Organization, a man praised by supporters for expanding global health cooperation, but also criticized by detractors who question the organization's transparency, influence, and political entanglements. In online commentary circles, his name alone is often enough to split opinion in two completely different directions. Critics call him evil, and that's exactly why the Geneva moment became so combustible.
And yet, she's still not featured in the World Health Organization website the way she wants to, because of course, Dr. Tedros is a narcissist himself.
Many people saw not a neutral partnership, but a carefully staged alignment between two highly visible public figures, each with their own reputational baggage, attempting to reframe a deeply complex issue through the language of moral urgency. And in that framing, questions started to multiply. Why this event? Why this stage? And why now? The message becomes less about structural solutions and more about image management. Because every association is now analyzed, every handshake is dissected, every photograph becomes evidence in someone else's argument. And perhaps one of the most quietly noticed details from Geneva wasn't what was said on stage, or even how many people were in the audience.
Okay, we sped it up just so you can see. Like, literally nobody is on the side. They have all the ropes up to protect her from crowds coming. There's one woman in the background. No one is there.
It was who wasn't there. Because while Meghan Markle appeared alone at the Lost Screen Memorial event, her husband, Prince Harry, was noticeably absent. No joint appearance, no shared statement from the stage, no familiar image of the couple presenting a unified front, which has so often defined their public life since stepping back from royal duties.
This time she seemed to be flying solo. I guess she left Prince Harry at home. He's probably so happy to have the house to himself.
And in the world of online commentary, absence is never just absence. It becomes a question. For many, Harry's absence wasn't neutral, it was symbolic. Another detail added to a growing narrative of distance, divergence, and separate public paths. In online discussions, even routine solo appearances can be reframed as signals of deeper tension. Some commentators went further, suggesting that the couple's increasingly independent public engagements reflect a shift in priorities, with each carving out their own space within overlapping but not identical roles. Others pushed more dramatic interpretations, speculating about strain behind the scenes, though without any confirmed evidence. Still, in the attention economy, speculation doesn't need confirmation to spread.
They actually were contacted by Meghan and Harry years ago when they actually had Archwell Foundation, and then ghosted Fair Play, and then just takes credit for all their work.
It only needs contrast. And Geneva provided exactly that. One partner delivering a global message on child safety and digital harm, and the other entirely off stage, absent from the frame. Whether that absence means anything at all is impossible to know from the outside. But in the world of celebrity narrative cycles, even silence becomes part of the story. And sometimes, the loudest part of it. In the hours after Geneva, the conversation online didn't stay focused on the speech for long. Instead, it shifted sharply toward one recurring talking point: the size of the crowd, or the perceived lack of it.
When you're a real member of the royal family like Princess Catherine and William and King Charles, Camilla, oh, the streets are packed. It's like Michael Jackson came to town. People are throwing roses. Remember Catherine, they had the baby. They're like, please kiss my baby. In Italy, they're like, Reggio Emilia, kiss my baby. So Catherine is over there in Italy, like getting a Princess Diana level reception. Meghan Markle shows up, it's crickets.
In the viral commentary space surrounding Meghan Markle, clips and screenshots were repeatedly circulated showing the event setting, with critics arguing that the turnout appeared minimal compared to the scale of the subject matter being discussed. The visual impression of the scene became the story itself, often outweighing the content of the speech. People pointed to background movement, passers-by, and the open public setting as evidence, framing it as a symbolic mismatch between the gravity of the topic and the apparent level of in-person engagement.
She tried to compare herself to Catherine. She announced it many days prior because she thought there was going to be a lot of public, and the Sussex squad is turning it around and say it's for her own safety that they didn't allow people. You wouldn't be able to stop crowds from coming from the other sides, you know. Instead, this was a very quickly put thing just for her to have something to do to copy Catherine.
However, the criticism didn't stop at crowd size. Another recurring theme was the reaction, or lack of visible reaction, from those who were present. This claim, of course, isn't entirely new to viewers of the Crown Clash channel. It was something already touched on in a yesterday's breakdown. Check it out in this channel. And in the comment sections that followed, a very specific narrative started to form. Some users suggested, loudly and repeatedly, that interest in the appearance of Meghan Markle was minimal compared to what they described as competing royal attention elsewhere in Europe at the time.
This was the moment, the major defeat on her face, when she realized that no one had bothered to show up for what was a catastrophic speech, a hypocritical speech, a speech which blows out of the water every single thing that she has argued in terms of her brand.
One recurring talking point in those comment threads was the idea that Meghan's public was in Italy watching Catherine, Princess of Wales, and it drew significantly more organic interest, media coverage, and on-the-ground presence. On one side, Meghan's Geneva appearance was framed by critics as a highly controlled, tightly staged moment, emotionally serious in tone, but visually sparse in terms of public engagement. On the other side, Catherine's engagements in Italy were described by supporters and commentators as drawing more visible enthusiasm, with huge crowds, press attention, and a more traditional royal atmosphere.
Meghan Markle hasn't caught on to the fact no one cares anymore. Why would the people in Geneva, Switzerland, on their weekend, on their days off from work, want to go hear you speak about bullying?
The comparison quickly became less about the actual events and more about what each figure symbolized in the public imagination. This was presented as a broader attention divide. For some critics, the real problem with Meghan Markle's Geneva appearance had nothing to do with artificial intelligence at all. It was something much harder to define. The speech didn't just sound polished, it sounded manufactured, not fake in the obvious sense, not robotic, not emotionless, but engineered.
She wrote at the very last minute, she bombarded the World Health Organization guy, the director general, to get her to come there. And she told him that Harry was coming because people don't understand that Harry's the one who was championing this, not Meghan Markle. Just like Harry was the one championing Invictus Games. It was his initiative. He was the one that was associated to this.
The event itself centered around grieving parents, online exploitation, and the emotional consequences of digital harm affecting children. A deeply human topic. Yet critics argued Meghan's delivery felt less like raw concern and more like a carefully calibrated public relations performance. The language sounded refined, media-trained, focus-grouped. Some online commentators described it as corporate empathy, the kind of emotionally aware language often used by major organizations, PR firms, tech executives, and global advocacy campaigns.
By the way, we hate these social media companies except for when I make money from them.
And whether that criticism is fair or not, it points to a much larger issue Meghan Markle now faces every time she appears in public. People no longer listen only to what she says. They analyze how she says it. The tone, the wording, the pauses, the body language, the framing, the camera angles, even the facial expressions. For many viewers, Meghan has become less of a public figure and more of a permanent internet debate. And Geneva may have exposed that problem more clearly than ever.
Down at her feet, staring up at her mother. Here you can see it. It's just me. It's me admiring me as my daughter admires me in my closet of designer clothes. This is how I want you to understand how relatable I am.
Because almost immediately after clips from the speech appeared online, the conversation stopped being about online child safety. Instead, it became another referendum on Meghan herself. Not the issue, not the policy, not the families. Meghan. Supporters praised her for bringing attention to an important conversation. Critics accused her of turning tragedy into branding. And somewhere in the middle, the actual subject of the event almost disappeared entirely beneath the noise of celebrity culture. That may be one of the strangest realities of Meghan Markle's public image in 2026.
She posted this weird picture getting ready to leave for the event on cyberbullying. And the whole event was about protecting your kids from social media. And I guess she doesn't see the hypocrisy that she's posting her kid on social media.
No matter what cause she speaks about, the conversation eventually circles back to the same question. Is it genuine? Because for a growing number of critics online, Meghan no longer enters public spaces as a neutral humanitarian figure. She enters them as a symbol people project larger frustrations onto. Celebrity activism, elite culture, media narratives, royal drama, public relations, privilege. And once someone becomes symbolic online, every appearance becomes a battlefield.
Being hypocritical, because this is a woman who's speaking to parents who have lost their children to dangers of on social media while she is parading her kids everywhere.
Geneva was no exception. In fact, some critics argued the setting itself only amplified the disconnect. The polished conference environment, the security, the cameras, the carefully staged visuals, the international institution backdrop, the luxury aesthetic surrounding a speech about vulnerable children and grieving families. To supporters, it looked professional and globally important. To critics, it looked like another elite image summit disguised as activism. That contrast became impossible to ignore online.
And this is again another example of Meghan trying to cosplay Diana. Very obviously. But she's done nothing for our health. Actually, she's probably been very bad for our mental health around the world, if we're honest, because she just annoys us all so much.
For years now, Meghan and Harry have remained in a constant cycle of interviews, documentaries, speeches, podcasts, public statements, media appearances, and global initiatives. And the word plagiarism in this story is not random. It is not the first time. And that creates a dangerous cycle, because eventually audiences stop reacting to the message itself. They react to the person delivering it. That's exactly what appeared to happen in Geneva. By the end of the controversy, people weren't debating online child safety anymore. They were debating authenticity, image management, celebrity influence, artificial intelligence, royal relevance, public trust, and whether modern audiences can still believe carefully crafted public figures at all.
She was assigned to a bus stop. Look at that. Look at in the red circle. So actually, the woman who everyone's saying is there to watch was actually just trying to get home. Meghan's mole pointed out that even the Sussex squaddies couldn't be bothered to go to Geneva to support Meghan.
And for Meghan Markle, that may be the most uncomfortable question of all. And if you thought this is wild, be sure to check out yesterday's video on Crown Clash, where we broke down the first major wave of backlash surrounding Meghan Markle's appearance in Geneva. Don't forget to subscribe to Crown Clash for the latest royal drama and breaking stories every single day. And now I want to hear from you. Do you think the backlash against Meghan is justified? Or has the internet simply turned her into a permanent target? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Hit like if you enjoyed the video, and share this with someone following the royal drama closely.